Before we go much further, please do go and get your device, your phone, your laptop. We're going to be asking you to go to cnn.com/join to engage and give us some direction, some guidance, some thoughts, some views. And it's all about the automobile industry, cnn.com/join, because there's plenty going on in the automobile and the automotive world. Let's join me and welcome to Quest Motors, where I've got a nice little runner for you. Look what we've got in the garage. Honda is joining forces with General Motors on self-driving cars. The Japanese giant is investing $2 billion in GM's autonomous vehicle division, which is called Cruise. Now, there are other aspects. Open the door again. We've got Daimler and Renault say they may cooperate on autonomous cars and battery technology. And want to know why they're getting together? Well, Renault says it's seeing extra demand for electric vehicles and sees value in doing a deal with Daimler. Yes. I say. And Aston Martin, right at the front of the garage. The Aston Martin had its market debut in London today on the stock exchange. However, the stock did fall as much as 7% during the session. It closed nearly 5% below the IPO price. Investors unhappy at the valuation, which initially put Aston Martin on par with Ferrari. Which brings us to our question. Buying a luxury car stock costs a lot less than buying the luxury car itself. So, which of the three cars that are traded, which of the three car companies that are traded in the market would you want to drive home? Which would you want to drive home? Would you want to drive home a Tesla? Would you want to drive home a Ferrari? Or would you want to drive home an Aston Martin? And related to that question, which of the stock would you be most interested in owning? The Aston Martin, the Ferrari and the Tesla, working on the unproven principle that you would prefer to own the stock of the car that you're driving. Those are the three. cnn.com/join is the choice that we want to make. You'll see the results in just a moment, after we've heard from the Aston Martin chief executive, who told Anna Stewart that he's focused on the long game rather than day one. And listen for the hint about the question on the next James Bond film.
This was never, ever an IPO about the short term. From the very beginning and the roadshow and the 350 investors that I met, it's all about the long term. You have to look at the long term. You can find comparisons, and you can look at Ferrari and say we don't compare to them today, and that's basically true. But the question is about looking forward, looking through the 7x7 plan, and looking at the execution of that plan, and thinking about where we'll get to. So it's very much a long-term investment plan, very much a long-term investment, and you know, intraday trading and trading in the first few hours. I don't think you can judge success or failure based upon that.
Now, since we last spoke, Brexit negotiations haven't really gone anywhere. You could say they've got worse. Are you ramping up your contingency plans, you know, warehousing components? I know you import most of your components.
Look, our assumption, our working assumption is it will be a hard Brexit. And we're preparing everything on the basis of a hard Brexit. And that means that we've taken our days of working stock from 3 days to 5 days. If you think about the 2 weekends on either side, that means that we can go, today we can go 9 days without supply. In addition to that, because we're a relatively small manufacturer, obviously we have the option of using different ports of entry and also flying goods in. It's not something I particularly want to do, and for sure if we go 9 days with parts stuck at the ports, there's going to be an awful lot of other car companies in an awful lot more trouble than us, but we do have that contingency to fly if we need to.
We had a big announcement today from Honda. They're investing some $2.75 billion in GM's self-driving unit. Now, I know you want to compete in the space. You did announce a concept car, a driverless concept car. But how can you compete? You're such a minnow compared to these big players with big investments.
You know, it's very funny. When I joined Aston 4 years ago, generally the rhetoric was you can't possibly compete unless you're part of a big car company. Now, of course, Ferrari have successfully spun off as a small unit and are being very successful. Aston today, and the rhetoric I hear out there right now is, you know, the others, the Porsches, the Bentleys, the Lamborghinis of the world, they should consider going public. A complete reversal in a short space of time. I think what's important is that if you're going to be a low volume manufacturer, a luxury manufacturer, you need to be nimble and agile. And you get that from being small and independent. But you also need access to technology. And of course, basically, we access that technology through partnership, in particular partnership with Daimler on the one hand for our V8 engines and our electrical systems, and on the other hand, Red Bull and Red Bull Racing in particular for the very high-end sports cars, the Valkyrie and the son of Valkyrie that we announced just a week ago.
Do you think your customers would actually want to drive a driverless car? Considering you're a sports car company, surely most of the fun's in actually driving it.
No, absolutely. Look, we're not in a rush. The industry categorizes autonomous driving, broadly speaking, into 5 categories. Most of the industry today is at tier 1 or perhaps tier 2, and that's really driver's assistance. And likewise, Aston is accessing that level on its current and future cars. We're philosophically against level 3. Almost to the point of saying that it's reckless. So level 4 is the ability for a car to drive itself and not to hand back controls to the customer. I don't see Aston needing to move into that space anytime soon. But interestingly, of course, Lagonda, which is our other wing, which is more about chauffeur-driven cars, the opportunity to go from a carbon-based chauffeur to a digital-based chauffeur with level 4 and level 5 is interesting in the future. And obviously, that's technology that we are looking at.
Now, there are reports that James Bond may switch back to a Lotus car for the next film. Have you got any news on this? And how disappointing would that be for a brand so closely married to that film?
Well, I can confirm that that Aston Martin will be collaborating in the next chapter of Bond. So read from that what you will.